How's it going, everyone? Welcome to church for what is this, like the sixth week? We haven't had like a traditional gathering. It's been kind of crazy, but yeah, it's been a good period of time for a lot of housework and yard work if you have that to do. It's been a rough time for extroverts and for social gathering. And so I don't know where you're at in that spectrum, but whether it's been a good time or a rough time. I know that we have some people in our church who have lost jobs, been laid off through this time. I know we have some people who, it's going well for them. Everything is pretty decent. I don't know where you're at in all of that, but if you are someone who has lost a job or isn't sure where your next paycheck's going to come from, we just want to say that we're with you, and that if you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know it's really hard to ask for help, but that's what a church is for. And so we also have a place where you can go if there is something that they need done, whether it's running to get groceries or you need someone to come by and help out with something or whatever it is. And you can do that while socially distanced. Then go on our website and then go to the Connect page, and there's a spot where you can fill out a form to be able to get some help there. But other than that, man, it's I know it's been crazy for all of us. If there is anything that you need, please don't hesitate to ask. You can continue giving if you are if you're able, and you can do that at our website, nhaf.church, and go down to the bottom. There's a giving page. And beyond that, we just have a closing to our Let's Talk series. This is an intergenerational conversation about how we can break down the barriers between our generations and talk. It was a lot of fun to have the conversation with everyone, and I hope you enjoy it. Well, hey guys, it's good to see all of you, your smiling faces. I see that Richard and Vicky have is that pray, worship, and rejoice. That's awesome. Blessings is over here with his messy bed that he hasn't made yet.
You can see it?
Hold on. You're being graded. No. You're good, man. Just moving it doesn't make us unknow that your bed isn't made. But yeah, and Sarah, I see that you have been watching the Tiger King.
No.
No, not yet. You have the cat print on, and there's a lady on the Tiger King who really loves wearing cat print. So
good to know.
But well, yeah, guys. So we have people here from a lot of the generations in our church. It isn't, of course, fully representative, but this is a good group of people here. And as we've talked about a little bit over the course of the last few weeks, we've had conversations amongst generations specifically, and those were really good. It was fun to kind of talk together. For me, it was a lot of a learning experience, hearing some of the stuff that you guys grew up with or your perspective. But this conversation is built around talking together. So talking to each other, getting to know each other a little bit, and modeling what it could look like to have intergenerational conversations. So yeah, we might say some ignorant things and ask some ignorant questions about each other, and that's okay. We're gonna get to know each other together. So the first thing I want to do is I want us to name something about our generation that other generations might not know about or remember. And so yeah, it might be easier for an older generation to come up with something, because there's a lot of us don't remember some of the stuff from or we wouldn't have ever known. So why don't we just start with Richard and Vicky? What's something from your generation that the younger generations might not remember or know?
Me first?
Yeah.
I know somebody had mentioned in the past beatniks, and you had to have that explained to you.
Yeah, I had to look that up.
Do you remember doo-wop?
I've heard the term. I honestly
style of music.
Yeah.
Popular. How about transistor radios?
I actually know minuscule about it.
Yeah, they're just, before they came out, radios were big and on the shelf or something like that. And then there's these little, you could hold them in your hand and get, AM and FM.
Yeah.
And everybody had that, that was so cool.
Man, Blessings, can you imagine that? Just walking around with the radio in your hand?
No.
That was before the boom boxes, you know, what they had to hold it on
Yeah.
your shoulders.
That was probably their generation.
Vicky,
Vicky, you have anything?
Sputnik.
I know about Sputnik. I do know
Okay.
about that.
How about you,
So-
Blessing? Do you know what a Sputnik was? Okay, it was
No.
the first Soviet, well, it was the first artificial satellite that went into space.
Yeah.
And but that was I was only 7 years old when it went into space. But I remember my folks liked to bowl, and we went out at a bowling alley and we watched it go overhead.
way.
You could see the light go overhead, and I remember that.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
And
so
the
crazy
other
because
thing-
it's so
go
crazy
ahead.
because now we just go outside and there's hundreds of them all over
Yeah,
the place. But that
yeah,
was in
yeah.
the first one. That's so crazy.
And you
dropping
knew
like
what it
flies.
was because it was the only thing moving, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing is fizzies.
I don't know about that.
They were these little things. They were kind of like Alka-Seltzer, only they were flavored.
Little tablet.
They were little tablets, and you put them in water. And I found it on the internet. It said they used to come in root beer flavored and orange and lemon lime and all that. And in 1968, they quit making them. So that was
No
my
way.
two things.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I've never heard of those. Have you, Sarah, John? Have you guys ever heard of them?
No, we had Pop Rocks though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were kind of like that.
Well, how about you, Sarah, John? Anything from your generation, your grown-up time that either Blessings or I or Richard and Vicky might not remember or know about?
Pogs.
I feel like I've heard that term before. Maybe did we talk about it in the last one? What are Pogs?
I think so. The little, I don't know, paper thin round things, and you'd slam it, hit them with the slammer, and knock them off, and then you'd win them. Whoever got them off the stack won those Pogs.
I'm looking it up. I don't even know. Pogs. Blessings, have you ever heard of
What
them?
was the purpose?
Nope.
It was a game. It was like jacks or something like that. You would win the version or the pile.
Oh, gotcha. Like, can you see these like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably have some out in the garage.
No way.
And couldn't you get them different places?
Yeah,
Or
you got them at like card shops and stuff, and then
Yeah.
you'd have different size slammers. And the bigger ones you launch.
Dang. Well, Sarah, how about you? Anything?
Last time you mentioned that you didn't really know what Full House was. So
Well, so I know what it is, but I was like just too young to have ever watched it.
really remember. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of my slang and my generation's slang kind of came from there. Like,
No way.
you've got it, dude. And oh, my Lanta.
Oh, is that where that came from?
It is.
No way. I didn't know that. Man. Well, from my generation, there was this craze. First of all, there's Pokemon that happened, and then Beyblades. That was, I don't know. Do you guys ever hear about those?
I know Andrew likes them. I don't really know what they are.
So I think they've come back. They're these spinning tops, and then so you have this launcher. You pull it, and then the tops would spin, and then they battle each other. And so when I was like at summer camp, there'd be these kids who on the garbage can lids that were flat, they'd have these Beyblade battles, and you had to like collect them, and yeah, it was something else. So that was one of the things from mine. Blessings, how about you, man? What's something
I'm
that's something
honestly
that's
lost.
happening right now that the rest of us?
What do you mean?
What's something that right now that's happening that me as a millennial, the elderly millennial now, and Gen X and baby, you're baby boomers, right, Richard and Vicky?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what was something that the rest of us wouldn't know
Mumble rappers.
about? I know about those.
What are they?
They're rappers who don't even make sense when they're singing. They're just like, they
Like they're saying words, but the way they're saying them just kind of sounds like they're mumbling. So yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense unless you grew up into it. How about TikTok? Tell us about that.
Ooh, TikToks. Hey. Okay, so you just opened my mind. Now there's TikToks. It's a social media app where you can do like dances or like skits. It's actually really cool.
Oh, that's fun.
So I know about like Vine. How is it different than Vine? Vine was like 6-second videos. How is it different than that?
Because TikToks, you can make them for as long as you want, up to a minute. And so you can keep extending the joke. Like one of my favorite TikToks is like, and it's crazy, but just bear with me. It's this dude who had like made himself like God, and he was like God when he was creating me. And so it was like good looking, and he got like a big pot, and then he was adding water, and so he would add like a little bit of water for good looking, and then for like tall, he added like a bigger pot of water because he's tall. He isn't good looking, but you know, we'll just say he is. But then it was someone who loves God, and he like dumps the whole pot, and like the floor in his kitchen overflowed because he dumped too much. And then I was like, oh, that's cute.
Gotcha. So it's just like this. Yeah. So it's social media where you watch other people's videos. So it's not like YouTube, because it's just like how is it different?
Because you see, YouTube, people are more talking documentaries, or they're like showing themselves play video games, or like stuff we don't really care about. But TikTok, they're meeting our needs. They are talking to us. And like TikTok is made that the videos you like, that's what you see. So when I got my heart broken, I was liking too many like sad TikToks. And so my whole TikTok feed was literally just like, it's okay. You're a king. You'll find your future wife. And it was just like that the whole like 2 weeks.
Gotcha. Okay.
The
So
YouTube wouldn't do that.
Yeah. It wouldn't console you in your grief.
So is there an age limit? Does this?
Actually, there is no age limit. There are a lot of people, like there's grandpas who are using TikTok to like be the cool grandpa. They're actually becoming really cool though, because like they learned how to use it. I think that's cool.
Cool.
Yeah. So there you go. If you want to be a cool grandpa, get TikTok.
If you make a TikTok, follow me, and I'll send you funny videos.
Wait, give yourself a shout out. What's your?
Oh, it's my name, Blessings Monster. It's right there. See, like right there.
Yeah. I see it. Yeah. Well, okay. So we're learning stuff. So, let me ask this question. So what is something that you appreciate about other generations? So we have an older generation, parents, and then a younger generation. So what's something that you appreciate about the other two generations that aren't yours? And Sarah and John, why don't you guys start?
Well, for the older generation, I really appreciate how much they love our kids. Just especially at our church, when we come in, everyone always says hi to them and gives high fives and compliments Lily's dress or hair or whatever. And it's really sweet.
Yeah. What about a younger generation?
For the younger generation, like you and Blessings in particular, I really appreciate how much you guys think about things. Maybe I'm just a tired mom who doesn't have a lot of time to think, but you guys really think things through, and you're also really open to new things and change, which is really cool.
Thank you. How about you, John? What are your thoughts?
Same lines.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Okay, Blessings. What about you, man?
You see, you're not in my generation, so I have to split it up into 3 different categories. I think I'm Gen Z.
Yeah, you are.
Something like that. But anyways, from the oldest, I really appreciate like their willingness to like help me learn. Cause like I'll be at church and I'll be talking about something like, and then someone will like tell me, like give me a different perspective on how I was thinking it through. Like it could be a Bible story that I've grown up like thinking it was one way. And they'll just like redirect my thinking to give me a different view. And so I really appreciate that. And then from like the middle age, you know, the ones with the kids, I love your kids. So I really appreciate the fact that y'all brought kids into the world, and so I can play with them. But I also appreciate like your willingness, not because like sometimes some people are like, oh, don't talk to my kids, like, oh, don't touch them, but like your openness to let me open my heart to your children. I appreciate that. It means a lot, because I don't know how I would be able to survive at church if there were no kids. I'm just being honest, because I need to be older than someone. I can't be the youngest. And so you giving me that ability to be middle. And
Well,
then
there's a kid about to join us. Evie's a week.
Okay.
and then for like the one immediately above me, just your friendship, just the fact that y'all are almost close to what I'm going through in life, so I can complain without like having it be like a 30-minute long lecture about like, listen, life will get better, because life will get better, but right now it might be a little blue.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, yeah. So you appreciate us for, the millennials, for our wisdom and our all-knowingness and our this
Okay,
ability
I
to
didn't. No,
Years of
no. Time out. Time out. I said that about the oldest generation. Their wisdom and their
Okay, gotcha.
I just appreciate like the squadability of it all. You feel me?
I don't know what that means, but would you like to fill us in what squatability means?
So squadability means like the ability to squad. Like, a group of people, like it's a team. Like, when they say this is my squad, they're
Yeah.
basically saying these are the people I would die for. And so the squadability of it all, meaning I know if it came down to it, someone might step in front for me.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Richard and Vicky, we're learning new things. So about Gen Z. So tell me about you guys. What are your thoughts about that middle-aged parent generation and the younger generation? Things you appreciate.
I know we had the same thing for the middle generation. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to mention to Blessings is that it should be and can be a two-way street. This idea of getting somebody else's perspective on something that you've known, because that sometimes the older you get, the more things are ingrained, and yet it's nice to be able to get a fresh perspective on things. I've learned a lot from my own kids who are in their 40s and our grandkids. I mean, that's the only way I know anything about an iPhone is from our grandkids. So that and things like squatability. Did I say it right? That's cool. I learned something already. Can I go now? No. I can only handle so many new things. That's cool.
Oh, you're going to answer the question about
I said it. You say so.
Well, we were both thinking about the young parents and about the parents. What we really appreciate is that the way they take care of their families and that they make that their priority. And that's what it should be, raising your kids. I think that's God's first priority is for us if we're going to have children to make them the priority in our lives.
Yeah.
And we both put that down. For the younger generation, I appreciate your passion, the passion in your music. I always loved worship music and seeing people really worship. I may not always like to hear the same music over and over, but I'm learning with that too. But I just think it's the passion and just seeing what you guys do and how you just really worship, and you don't seem to worry about things like a lot of us old people do. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you say about the younger generation?
Enthusiasm.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What were you saying?
Enthusiastic.
Yeah, okay, enthusiasm. Yeah. Well, I feel like for me the older generation is not just full of wisdom, but when you talk about life experience, it's amazing how valuable that is, just perspective on things. But even beyond that, especially about the older generation in our church, this actual like real desire to not just control everything that you've had for so long, not to just kind of do things as they've always been done, but rather to you're open to a new way, a new perspective, and to even give things away. Like that's such a huge thing for other generations who come after, because then it can be a teamwork thing instead of one generation fighting the other one while the other one fights the other one. So I just appreciate that so much. And then about our parents, it's one of those things where you guys are in this phase of life that is you're right in the middle where you still have the new thinking, the new ideas, a different perspective, but also you're gaining the wisdom from having children, from being married for a while, all of that. And it's this mix of the two where like people in my age group or younger, we can kind of be passionate but dumb. And I don't mean that like in it like we can also be smart, but like we can have those really dumb moments where just like, yeah, like this will work, and it just is dumb. But and then our older generation, this isn't true of everyone, but can have moments where there's a lot of wisdom, but there isn't as much energy. But you guys are kind of right in the middle of that, and especially I know as the kids get older, and as you train them to be the next disciples and pastors, and I know you're having kids specifically so that they can repopulate the church. That's the main reason, right? Yeah. So no, but like to say something apart from you guys as parents is just to say that I really appreciate you guys' thoughts, your care, and your dedication for the church, because you guys are also in that middle age group where you know the value of investing in something, and I think that a younger generation can forget that or not even know it yet. And so you guys have been invested for a while, and it's really meaningful. Look at how cute she is. It's ridiculous.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, let me say this. Let's ask some questions. So this is where we kind of get to the where our differences kind of come out. So tell me about a negative experience or feeling that you felt from other generations. And just before we say this, that means that we're each going to hear something that kind of hurts a little bit and may feel like we're misunderstood. But what we're going to do here is listen to what someone else has experienced and hear it for what it is. And so regardless of whether it's true or not of how we might think about another generation, this is what we felt and what we've experienced. So why don't we start with blessings? I want you to tell me some negative things. And if you don't have anything negative, that's totally fine too, but I am curious to hear some of the negative experiences.
Are we talking, excuse me, are we talking specifically at our church?
In general.
Because I mean, at our church, I haven't experienced anything negative, if I'm being real. But I mean, at my old church, I really wanted to get involved when I was younger. And like, I was in Pathfinders, so I was already like the oldest Pathfinder because it was just me and my brother and sister and my cousin. So I naturally took like the leadership role of like being the oldest TLT. And so I was like in charge. So I got a little bit of responsibility. And so then they put me on like a mini church board. It was just like it was a Pathfinder. It was like a middle-aged mom. So like kind of like the group we have going here, and our pastor. And I was putting ideas down. Like I was like, hey, if you guys want, we can like record for you guys. Like we can run the cameras so that we don't get distracted during church, because church would go for a little long. And so I wanted to get us involved. And so we did. And then all of a sudden, like I said, we could help, but I didn't say we could take over. So they misunderstood what I meant. And then it became like me and my brother and sister would get at church at 10, and we were running a camera until maybe 1. And, standing for that long and trying to focus on like our pastor who would move around a lot, it was just hard, because then you'd like get distracted for half a second, and then you'd hear like one of the sound people like, hey, pay attention. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And so that kind of like rubbed me off in the wrong way, because I wanted to help, but I didn't want to like put me and my team in charge of a whole thing like that. And so I think I was misunderstood for my intentions. So that was kind of negative in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So say more, like a little bit more about this, in the sense of like, what did you feel like what did you feel like an older generation did in that context? Like, is it part of a bigger thing that you felt, or is that just that one moment?
I mean, it was part of the bigger thing, because I was like trying to get involved. And so, and I guess because I was still in high school, I still had school to juggle with, and I was like doing sports and stuff. And so if I missed church one Sabbath, and I had like one of my other, like my cousin record, or someone like I would get in not trouble, but I would often get like a long lecture like, hey, you need to be committed. Like this is a commitment issue, and like Jesus wouldn't appreciate the lack of commitment. And then I was just like, I'm trying because I have high school to worry about. I was wrestling at the time, so I was like focused on like big goals, and like they were just getting upset with me without trying to understand where I was coming from. Because like we all have lives outside of church that we would do. And so like it was basically like they're trying to make me sacrifice like the things I was getting good at just to record church. And I didn't feel appreciated. And so then I was just like,
Yeah. Yeah, you said something there. You said, I felt like they weren't trying to understand where I was coming from. They were just kind of like putting something on. Now, it's interesting. I'm curious to hear from generations that are older than you. I mean, have you sensed that? Have you ever seen yourself do that, or other people in your generation do things like that?
but try not to understand where other people are coming from.
Yeah, and I'm asking like Richard,
Oh.
Vicky, John, and Sarah. Like, have you ever noticed that in yourself or in other people in your generation? John, you're smiling. I'm curious what you have to say.
I was just smiling at his response.
Yeah, Richard, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, we're all human and we're all self-centered, and we tend to, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but a lot of times it's easy to misunderstand maybe why, if you don't have a good relationship with people, it's easy to misunderstand their motives, possibly.
Yeah.
So I could go on, so I probably will. For me, negative experience, and I'm going to mention it in our church, that sometimes we kind of feel like maybe we are invisible to the younger generation. But I don't know that that's a generational thing as much as it is. I think I mentioned this before, that when you come into church, you see people that you're very familiar with. It's very easy to go to those people and be very friendly. Hi, how you doing? How was your week? And yet there's, like, say, the whole younger generation. And so I'm trying to flip-flop this around. That's because I see the younger people coming in and they greet each other. And I'd like to say hi, but they walk right by me. I can't do anything about that. What I can try to do is try to focus my attention on not being like that to other people.
Yeah.
So, John, have I ever walked right past you? I've been told I'm good at that, of, narrow vision, and just, boy, that guy, he didn't even acknowledge my existence. If I did, I'm sorry, because I don't want to be that way. I want to. Paul Scott was a hero to me, because he said he never wanted anybody to leave the church feeling like they weren't met and greeted and loved. And I thought, what a motto to the pattern.
What Blessing was saying is things like that happen. I think even as we were growing up, the same things happened to us. People don't always understand each other, and you might have some really good motives and have some, I've done that many times, thought I had great ideas, and then, no one understood me, or they thought I was doing something wrong, or they told me I had to do something else. And I understand exactly what you're saying. And it's hard, especially when you're younger and you take it to heart, I know that can be difficult. I think the thing I find is that I feel like people don't think I'm important, that anything I care about is important. I feel like it's maybe the invisibility thing, but I see that, and not just necessarily in the church. And I think I probably did the same thing to the generation before us, that I didn't listen to their stories. I didn't really care. I was busy. You get really busy. You're taking care of your kids, or you're working and you're doing all that things, and you're not listening to others. And so I have to keep telling myself, I understand that. But sometimes it seems like what I'm feeling or what I want to share, no one cares. That's my
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah, and I appreciate both of you saying that, because those are things that, you know, if it happens a couple of times, you're kind of like, oh yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But if you feel a pattern of that, you begin to feel unimportant or invisible. You guys have said that a couple of times, the words invisible, and feeling that where that's like, that's one of the worst things to feel as a person, because you don't want to feel like you don't matter. So thank you for saying. I want to come back to that. Yeah, Richard.
If I can say something real quick.
Yeah.
Blessings, right there on our screen. I've never felt that way with him. He's always friendly, always positive.
Yeah.
He's like the younger Paul Scott.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, he's always.
And there's other young people that when they come up to you and greet you, it's a good feeling that, look, here's a younger person, coming up and saying hi, and she knows who she is, Ashley.
Anyway.
Are you talking about Ashley Jennings or Ashley? Or Ashley?
I don't
Ashley,
know what her last name is.
I said her maiden name. Ashley Tagel, Jonathan and Ashley.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great.
It's always so sweet.
They make you feel so good,
Yeah.
When I grow up, I want to be like that,
I love that. Great job, Ash. So I want to come back to that. I want to hear all of our stories and kind of come back to those. But thank you so much for sharing, because those are vulnerable things to share. John and Sarah,
Fine.
what was that?
I'm just
I wanna hear
telling him
from
to be
John
good.
and
Just
Sarah.
ignore him.
Well, yeah, John and Sarah, I was going to ask, what are some of your experiences negative with other generations?
I think for me, the older generation sometimes feeling judged, or maybe like I should be doing things their way instead of my way or a different way sometimes. In particular, I've shared this story with you before, Jesse, and I know other people at church, but when John and I got married, I was not a Seventh-day Adventist. I was a Christian, but anyway, so we were going to a Seventh-day Adventist church together, and there was this older lady that greeted us every week. But once she found out that I was not a Seventh-day Adventist, she stopped talking to me completely, just acted like I wasn't there. That made us leave the church for years. We didn't go to church at all. So I think it's really important to be aware of judgmental attitudes.
Agree.
Yeah. How about with the younger generation, Sarah? Any negative?
Nothing comes to mind. I mean,
That's
I
fine.
know that they're busy, and I relate a lot to them because I remember that phase of life. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, John?
I don't have anything really for younger either. I'm thrilled to see them there because of probably the negatives I've seen of most other churches being so conservative, fuddy-duddy, old style, not can't have drums in church or
Yeah.
and that was all my biggest experience. And it's weird, it's my family still goes to a church that is like that and are fine with that, and that's how I was raised. But it seems, I don't know, I've seen the negatives of that because that our church is the way I think we should be. We should be able to be open to do whatever. And
Tell me a little bit, John, about what you feel is behind some of that. Because maybe we're not talking about specifically some of those attitudes at our church where you can't have drums, you can't do certain things, right? But is there something you feel like from an older generation that kind of causes some of those things?
It's their interpretation of what the Bible says, I guess, and it's, I don't know. There's kind of a superiority sound, possibly, I don't know,
Yeah.
that I would feel. I've been, I've never been. I know the Bible this much, and I know exactly how it should be, and I know that's probably not what the case is, but sometimes it feels like, well, you should do this because this is what it says, and like, maybe, but
maybe it's not that way. Yeah.
maybe it's not that way. Maybe it should be. We could take the interpretation and be able to work from that and work it into how our life is now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there is one specific thing that I would say about an older generation who I love you guys very much. So I just want to preface this with this. But that there is a feeling of because are more years, there's more wisdom, that because of that, then all of that needs to be transferred from them to us, to me. So from here to here. And what that can lead to many times is oh, you're having an issue, and then it turns into not listening, but rather telling what I ought to do. And yeah, Vicky, go for it.
Just going to tell you what you ought to
No,
do.
I was just going to say, I don't think that's necessarily generational,
Yeah.
because kids, they do the same too. Sometimes I think part of it is personalities,
Yeah.
because sometimes that's done to us too.
Really?
You know,
Tell me more about that.
People in our own generation doing it to us, or
Oh, gotcha.
even when we were growing up, it's the same way. I think a lot of it's personality type.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think maybe starting, I don't know about you guys, John and Sarah. I don't know about Gen X or like that borderline generation, but also the I know millennials and probably Gen Z. There is less of a let me tell you what you ought to do, like give you a bunch of advice, because there is, I think, a felt thing that comes from we were told what to do all the time. In essence, that anyone who was older, hey hon, can we? Yeah. When anyone who was older, if it was like, oh yeah, like I don't know what I should be when I grow up, all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, you could do this, and then you could go to college for this many years, and then you could, and I'm sure that happened to most generations, but I know for millennials and maybe even other generations below, there's kind of this like, we're not going to do that. And so one of the things I have heard from many other people in my age group is it's hard to talk to people in an older generation because it usually doesn't end up with us listening or with them listening to us. It usually ends up with you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. This is how you should do it. This is what I did, and then this is what you ought to do as well. And so I know that I've experienced that. The advice giving can become a thing that turns you off to a conversation because you're afraid to step into a conversation because you're just going to get inundated with what you ought to do. I don't know. Blessings or Sarah and Don, have you guys experienced that? Blessings is nodding. I don't. John and Sarah, no.
Not so much, but I think a lot of that's just my personality. Like I grew up with my grandma, and she always was, you're going to go to school, you're going to get your degree, and I was just okay, like happy to follow along with that.
Yeah. Blessings, tell me a little bit. God, now I want to get to switching the bar and looking at us and how we treat an older generation. But Blessings, tell me a little bit about your experience.
I've always been, okay, I need to watch my words here. I've been rebellious, but like borderline. Like I'm not gonna go do something radically crazy. So like every time like my parents or like an older, like my auntie or grandma would tell me like, all right, you're gonna go to college and be an engineer, I would disobey it to an extent. Like my dad was like, you're gonna be an engineer. And I'm not an engineer. I'm studying network security engineering. See, it's kind of engineering, but I'm not doing like the mechanical engineering and all that. So like, I've always felt like not been bossed, but like been lectured beyond a point, like past the point. Like I would start getting lectured like, oh, you should go to school because, you know, school is good and it'll like be better for your life, and you'll have more options. And yeah, they're giving me all these valid points. And then like after they hit the last point, then it's like they said reset on the sermon, reset on the lecture, and then they hit me with like 33 different more points. And then after that, I'm just like, yeah, that's crazy. Oh, yeah. And so then I'm not listening, which is bad on my behalf, because like I understand what y'all saying when they say like we don't listen, because sometimes we don't. But like, just like, yeah, that's cool. Thank you for that. And then I'll leave the conversation like, oh, they really talked for an hour on a 3-minute topic. I love you though. The wrong way.
So in essence, you're saying that like there is a good amount of like, hey, you could try this, but then it very quickly becomes too much. In essence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And just to put in my two cents here, I think part of that is because I know for myself and a lot of other people in our generation, we want people who are older to invest in us, but we want them to know us. And so when someone just says, like, if I were to say, oh yeah, like I really like being a nurse, or I really like nursing, and then if someone just went off on like a 20-minute thing about how you could be a nurse, it'd be less interesting than if someone really asked us questions. Tell me more about that. What's interesting about that to you? Oh, it kind of sounds like you like that, but you like this other thing more. And then all of a sudden, as you become known, that person who's asking those questions, now if they told you something, it's like, oh, wow, that's really awesome. And so now that gains that through asking questions and through really gaining knowledge about me as a person, you gain influence in my life. And then the ability to speak into it in a better way, if that makes sense. I don't know if anyone else has anything to say about that, but that's definitely something from my generation that I feel. Here we go. So I just want to switch gears a little bit here. And both Richard, you and Vicky both talked about feeling invisible, feeling that people had either walked by or that what you cared about wasn't important. Tell me a little bit. Well, I guess actually before I ask you that, let me just say that I notice and have been guilty of those things. And I know that many people in my generation, and I don't know, John and Sarah, how you guys feel about yours, but I know that many people in my generation are like that. Do you feel like you've done that to an older generation?
I'm sure I have.
I mean, tell me more. I mean, like, is there something about, something that causes that?
It's probably more my shyness than anything. I'm not one to talk to somebody that I don't know very often.
Yeah.
I'll usually stick with the people I know, and that's probably a weakness that I have. And yeah, so
there's also just the kids.
Yeah.
We're wrangling them, and we're not really able to interact a whole lot with anybody when we're chasing them around.
So let me just say this real quick. So if I'm hearing you correctly, and Vicky, I'm curious about your response to this. If I'm hearing you correctly, it's not so much that you don't care or that you don't think that they're valuable or important, or that it's more of like, ooh, I don't know how to talk to them. I don't know how to say something. I don't know what I would do, or oh my gosh, Lily is about to run out into the parking lot. It's like, it's more of that than it is I don't care about them. Is that true, John and Sarah?
Yeah.
So,
Go for it, Vicky.
well, I just, again, so many of the little things we're talking about, maybe because we've already gone through a lot of these steps, and I mean, I know exactly what you're saying and you're thinking, and of course, I always feel like I'm part of the younger generation, because I mean, I don't like it when people tell me what to do. I don't like it. I mean, I've never liked that. I was a woman's liver. I still don't. I still am. I don't like to be told what to do, and it's hard. And we were out of the church for years, and we still might. I mean, because we did not want to go to the conservative churches like just you did, because we had been treated much the same way. or we had people telling us what to do, and we felt like God was showing us a different way. So I understand that, but I also see that in our generation. I see it in generations under us too, that people are telling other people what to do, or they're judging or things like that. And I hate to see that. And if I've ever done that to anyone, I really apologize, because I don't like to be like that. I might make suggestions. I love, I get these ideas. God puts these things in my head, and I make suggestions, and then I'll just keep my mouth shut. And if someone runs with them, fine. If not, at least I've done what God told me to do and made the suggestions. So,
Yeah.
but if you ever feel like I'm pushing you or anything, any of you, I want you to forgive me for that. So.
Well, yeah, and a lot of what we talk about isn't so much something that you specifically have done, but more of like generational, and like we talked about, like blessings isn't the guy who makes you feel invisible, but at the same time, there might be things that contribute to that. So, like for instance, one thing is that many in a younger generation may be afraid to talk to people in an older generation, because they're like, I don't want to get inundated with like being told what to do, or feeling like they don't really want to get to know me. They want me to do what they want to do. Thank you, Richard. Thanks for the affirmation. That being said, I also really appreciate what John said, which is in essence, it may not be anything but shyness. Just I don't even know what to say or
That's
do,
true.
or it's just easier to not go talk to somebody. But let me ask you this too, Vicky. You said something about not feeling like what you care about is important. Would you mind expounding on that a little bit? I'm curious.
Well, I just not so much in our church. I just see it. Maybe I see it sometimes in my own family, that what I care about, I think people are so busy they don't really have time to care about what I care about, or that they have time to listen to what I have. Maybe that's what we need to do, is just listen to each other in all generations more. Listen and let people talk, and try to encourage them. And maybe that's what we need to do with each other.
Yeah, I'm sensing the same thing. Is like there is a feeling of not being listened to, with everyone. It's not just one specific generation. Yeah, maybe it's a feeling of not being known. I don't know. Sarah and John, I'm curious. When you think of things that you feel we've talked about what's misunderstood with our generations, but you've talked about, if I remember correctly from the last videos, things like you're just really busy. It's not that you don't care, or we can't be at certain things because there isn't childcare or things like that. Do you feel like there's things that my generation or blessings or an older generation thinks about yours that are just, it's like, ooh, yeah, like that's not us?
I don't know. I mean, Vicky already said she sees that our life is our kids, and that's how it should be. So I can't think of any negative. That is our life, and I'm sure that's what people see.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like people? Do you ever feel like you're either excluded or not made a part of things because of that, or do you feel like it's, we're just so busy that we're not even really thinking about that? What do you feel?
Not being a part of what you mean, like events and stuff that don't have childcare?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't go to the Friday night cafe because there's no childcare.
Yeah.
That's just a big thing, and it's a big expense too. So when we choose to pay to have a babysitter, it's not going to be very often, and it's usually just for big important things, birthdays and anniversaries and whatnot. So a lot of times it isn't for extra church things.
Yeah, you're not going to shell out for something that is like of moderate value to you. You're going to shell out
$15 an hour for a babysitter.
Yeah. There you go, blessings. There's your next job.
There you go, if you need a job, yeah.
Well, so, and I want to ask a little bit more about this, Sarah. Obviously, I'm in a position where I don't know what it feels like, and especially people who are younger don't know what it feels like. What is it about Like, is it hard to interact with people who don't have kids, aren't in the same phase of life? Does it make it more challenging with you being in your phase of life?
At church, yes, because our kids are there.
Yeah.
If we're able to go out with other people and leave the kids with a babysitter, then no, because we can give our full attention then. When we have our kids with us, we really can't.
Yeah. So I'm curious, would the, like, in your generation, for you in your phase of life, what would be most helpful to you coming from other generations, like younger and older?
For us, you're still
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah.
Well, just to think about things like childcare when having events so that we can go. But also maybe not being afraid of inviting us over with our kids, because that's just how we get to hang out with people most of the time.
Yeah. Because it might be on some people's minds. Oh, like, I don't want to bother them. Like, I'm sure they're busy. I don't want to invite them over. That might be a lot of work for them to come up. Like, how would you respond? Do you want to be part of things? Or are you kind of like, we barely are functioning, by, like, we can barely get to church as it is? Like, what are your thoughts?
We want to be a part of things. We know we can't be a part of everything. I mean, kids have nap and bedtime, and he gets up crazy early, really shift at work, and so we do have a bit of a routine that we have to keep most days. But
Scheduling it is good.
yes, in advance.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think that's a problem too. I'm afraid to ask people over because I think they won't come. And, maybe that's part of our problem too, is that we think someone won't come, or that we think they're too busy, or they probably don't have time, or they probably wouldn't care to come,
Question, whose idea was that date night that we did a year ago or so?
That was cool, except we missed it.
I don't remember whose specific idea that was, but I think it was in a worship team meeting.
Did John and Sarah, did you guys go on a date night with somebody?
So I think it was around when Evie was born.
Oh, well.
So that, yeah.
We're a little
Going up to the delivery room,
Yeah, because we've done some of that, but yeah.
Because that was something that I felt was, we wanted to do it, but we're always, a day late. And so we didn't get in on it, but we knew of people who did. And I thought it was just a great way to where, as an older person, you wonder if I went and invited a young couple over, would they get kind of freaked out? What do these people want? Because of all the stereotypes, etc. That way, we were sort of forced into it, not forced, but had a good reason for doing it.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that again.
Well, then we should do it, Vicki and Richard, since we didn't get to do it last time either.
Yeah.
Let's get
There you
together.
go. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Once we're allowed to, right?
Just don't tell
exactly.
Jesse your blessing about it.
We're left out of this, Blessings. Just you and me, bro.
Dang.
Blessings, I'm curious, man, if and I know this might be your personality, but think about some of your friends or people in your phase of life. If someone from like Richard and Vicky's generation came up to you and said, "Hey, I want to invite you out to lunch, maybe at our house or out to a restaurant or something like that," you may, knowing you'd be like, "Yeah, let's do it." But think about your generation. What might be some of the things that would either say, "Yeah, let's do it," or "Ooh, that does not sound like it would be fun"?
You see, you know me, because I was gonna say, like, hey, if you ever want someone to eat food with you, I got you. Just to anyone watching, like, if you ever want to go out and eat, you can invite me. But I think
also, but you don't eat very much. I just want to say that.
Don't say that. I like company. I'm bored in the house. But honestly, I think the only thing that would like shy them away would be because they're afraid of getting lectured or getting that, like, that long talking to, like, like I said earlier. But then again, I know for me and like the people I hang around with, like we like having people invested in us, or like having people that like hold us accountable to things. Like me and Pastor Jesse, I'm his mini pastor, you know, baby blessings, and I honestly appreciate that because he's holding me accountable to something, and he's giving me something to do. And so, like with other people, like if someone older was to invite, like maybe my brother, because he's a shy person, he might stay away unless they have something in common. Like if you run, or like you're like into like cross country or track, or you just go on runs for like fun. I don't know how you can do that, but if you do that, like I know it'll get him hooked on the idea, like, okay, someone is he's right there.
He's probably
Someone
over there
is
just like
interested.
shaking his head no, isn't he?
Not really, but like someone is interested in him and like getting to like get to know him, that would make them say say yes.
Yeah.
If someone was to like start running with you at church. Exactly. See, he just agreed. But that's what I think. The only reason why I personally would shy away, even with my personality, is because I probably don't have the time, unless we made time for it, and then I would be there. But like I'm a busy person too, you know, school, work, and all that. So it's kind of hard. Like I relate to the middle-aged parents, you know, people with kids, because they have their kids they have to worry about, and they have their schedules and stuff. And I have my school schedule, and then my work schedule, and then like family time, you know, because my parents, they can't stay young forever. So I'm trying to cherish all these moments and just enjoy their presence before they kick me out the door.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, business is definitely a factor, but I agree with you. I think, I love how you set up blessings that and this is not just for Richard and Vicky, your age group, but also for like parents of young children, like you know, for a younger generation, I don't think there's anything that's like, nah, I never would go out to eat with someone older than me or something like that. But rather it's like, do they care? Like, is it that they care about me, or are they like, oh, we love church. We want you to be involved a bunch, and we want to tell you like how you could carry, like I do potluck. How about you do it too? And you're just like, you're just like, whoa, okay, let's just chill here. But if someone were to say, hey, I want to get to know you, ask you some questions, like that's a good start. So, but also I just want to share this. This is one of the things that I've learned as a pastor, is that one of my favorite things to do is to visit with people of other generations and just sit down and be like, what was it like growing up for you? You know, and this is where it's like some good questions to ask, no matter who you are. Because we were talking about, Vicky, you kind of brought up that we all don't feel like we're really heard or listened to. And it's just like asking, like, what was growing up like for you? And I think I just want to share this. Asking that question of people from like a baby boomer time has been so enlightening to me, because it helps me understand a little bit more about you and why some of the things that I don't understand are part of your life. Same thing for Gen X or something like that, where it's like, what was it like growing up for you? But it's really interesting when that question is asked of me or my age group, because we're going through it right now, and so is everybody else, but it's different when you've grown up in it. And so for someone to ask, what's it been like for you to grow up with technology? You'd probably find out that most of us in this age group, we don't love it. We don't like having technology as a part of our lives in every way. And yet it's the reality of our world. And so you kind of learn a little bit more about each other by just asking a simple question like that. What was it like growing up for you? Yeah, sorry, that was just a little bit of a tangent. We're actually already kind of into this question, but like, how do we come together? That's a question that we're going to ask. Vicky, were you going to say something before this though? It looked like you were.
Vicky, were you going
Me?
to say something?
Okay, no, but I do have something I can add when you're ready for the last question.
Yeah, so
You
we're
ready?
kind of, we're
Okay,
in that.
I got a list here though.
Oh, okay,
Mine-
I'm ready to hear it.
Mine is recognize that each person, younger or older, has feelings, desires, passions, needs, cares, worries, stresses, pressures, and issues that affect how they feel and think and interact. Listen to what they have to say. Really listen without judging. and encourage them, support them, and embrace them, not literally. Okay, keep the distance.
Well, not yet.
But most of all, extend grace. After all, that's what Jesus did for us, was to give us grace. That's my thoughts on it.
Man, I love that. Like, seriously, I love that. Because and I just want to say, this is a huge shortcoming of my generation, is showing grace. It's like, after you've been burned a couple of times by somebody, you're saying, no, I'm never going to listen to them or something like that. But showing grace is the only way we can really form relationships. But I love how you said that no matter who they are, there are cares, fears, worries, passions, all of that. And learning to listen to that. That's beautiful. I love that. What are some of your other thoughts? How do we come together and bridge these gaps? Because I've heard many people say, I feel the generation gap, specifically at North Hill. So maybe it's, you don't feel like the older generation is always lecturing, or you don't feel like the younger generation is completely aloof, or you don't feel like the parents are only ever focused on their kids and don't ever interact with the people. Maybe you don't think any of those things that can be generational, like big picture stereotypes, right? But people feel the generation gap. So how do we come together in that? And Vicky's already talked, so anybody else?
I think we just have to not be afraid to ask.
Point.
Like, if you don't ask someone to do something with you, then nothing is going to happen. It can be going out to eat or whatever after church, but I mean, like, I love to bake. Maybe someone else loves to bake and we can bake together.
Yeah.
Some of the guys in the church really like cars. I'm sure there's older and younger guys that like that and can do something together. So just finding some of those common things and asking.
Yeah.
Good to have a questionnaire on your interests and your what do you do for a living? I'm a big hands-on learner, so it's fun to learn things by doing it. Like building these planter boxes out here that I did. I looked it up and I did it, but I'd love to do it side by side with somebody that has done it. Or I learned to work on my car with my dad, and that's I can still do it, even if I haven't don't do it that often. But I only do that because I've had that hands-on experience with somebody else doing it with me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, because that whole idea of doing things together it's one of the biggest ways that you form relationships. Like just talking, especially just having like a random conversation at church every couple of weeks. It's like that doesn't really grow a relationship deeply. That actually doing something together is far more likely to say like to grow something. Yeah, Richard.
I agree with what you say, and I think one of the neatest things we can do is to maybe do things for others. And I speak from experience. This week, we kind of broke the rules, and Gene Brzee knew that we had some trees taken down in our backyard, and so he called me up and said, "Let's go cut up some of these pieces and take them out to Dixon's." And so we did that on Monday, and there was still lots of wood left. And so he and Jim Risky and I on Wednesday rented a wood splitter, and we got a whole big load of wood that I think we're going to take to Jeannie Ramsdell. And just as we were sitting here, I don't know if you guys heard my phone ring. I had to leave and go answer. It was Gene, and I said, "What do you need? Money?" And he said, he said, "No, I just called to shoot the breeze." And
How neat is
and we
that?
didn't, yeah, and nobody ever calls me, so it's cool that I have a new friend,
Yeah.
Hi, Gene.
He's in the same generation, but we could do it with younger
Yeah, we can do
generations
that
too.
with any of you guys and go and do something for somebody else, and
Yeah.
the need is there. So
And how cool would it be if you did have a project and you gave John a call Or yeah, John, you had a project something that you gave someone else a call. And not he doesn't have to do it in everything, but like yeah, there's nothing quite like having to make a Home Depot run and figure stuff out and like make a mistake, have to go back to Home Depot, get another thing. You're friends at that point. It's like so yeah, it's that would be I mean, blessings. I know that man, this guy has hours that he's got free. He's got so many hours that he could be helping with so many things. So I'm just saying, like John, he lives near you, you know. So
I got a mower.
Do they call that squatability? Huh?
Yes.
But I was thinking of something instead of me just thinking, oh, I could call him. Why don't I call and say, would it be okay if we watched your kids while you guys go out on a date? I mean, things like that. Why can't, maybe you wouldn't trust us with your kids, but maybe if we got to know your kids, they wouldn't be too scared of us or whatever, or other people in the church. If we did something more for each other, we could.
absolutely. Like, and I think that's one of the things I have been forced. Oh, she is not happy. Oh, now she's good. I have been forced
Didn't like that
into.
idea.
I've been forced into growing relationships with people outside of my age group, outside of maybe the people I would normally interact with. And I say that on purpose because I'm an introvert. I'm not someone who's like overly, let me get to know everybody I can. But being a pastor has forced me into that. And I'm so grateful for it. Honestly, I'm so grateful for it because it has caused me to learn things and really begin to see value in people that we don't inherently, a lot of us don't inherently see value in people until we start to get to know them. And so all of a sudden you see somebody and you kind of make judgment calls about them or thoughts about what they might be like. And you sit down with them and most of those get totally blown out of the water. You learn that like, oh, wow, this person has a life. Like they've experienced so much. Their story adds something to me. And their struggles, their experiences are so like mine in their own way that we can relate, and it's so cool. So I just share that because I love bringing up shared experience or doing things together or just sitting down and talking, because that starts to break down barriers. Blessings. I'm curious, man. I noticed something in my generation and probably yours too, which is this kind of like me first mentality. And I'm not trying to, we're not all negative about our generations, but like this kind of like, we get tunnel vision about like what we're doing, what we care about, what matters to us. Tell me your thoughts on what we can do to be more open and even initiate conversations with people who aren't part of our generation, who don't know about TikTok or don't know how to run an iPad as well as we do. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Wait, so what was the question? My fault.
So what can our generation do to either be proactive or to just kind of let down our walls a little bit in engaging with people who are different generations?
I know my generation, we like to cancel people real quick. Like if someone doesn't align with our view or like our opinion on something, we're very opinionated for one. And so if someone has a different opinion, they're immediately canceled. And what I mean by canceled is like we won't talk to them. Or like we'll talk to them, but it won't be like genuine or like, how can you say it, wholehearted. It wouldn't be out of love, or just be because they're talking to us. So we don't want to be rude. So we're talking to them. So honestly, what I think our generation could do is stop that. Like a smack on the hand, stop that. None of that. Because it doesn't help anything, especially in the church. Like I might get it if you're outside of the church and like you're doing whatever. And you're like, all right, you're canceled. But like when we look at it, Jesus didn't cancel people. I think I was talking to you the other day and you were like, Jesus took it. Like on the cross, he took everything. The people were being mean to him, just outright, flat out disrespectful. And he took it and he didn't like retaliate. And so something that we could do is instead of like, oh, they said, oh, why are you wearing them skinny jeans? Or why is your nose pierced? Like instead of being like, all right, you're canceled, just take it. Because at the end of the day, Jesus took all that crazy stuff the Romans were doing. I mean, everyone basically turned their back on him. and he still took it. And he even said, God forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. It's like, yeah, we all been saying it. We feel ignored sometimes, or like not heard, but like they might not know what they're doing, because we're all scared to some degree to talk to someone different outside of our age group, outside of our immediate clique, because it's just weird, you know. You can't just go chop it up with somebody you never talked to before and just expect everything to just go like smoothly. I mean, in all the interactions I've had at church with new people, it's like at first it's a little awkward, but then after you get past that awkward stage, like I could just go up to you and be like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Chopping it up. See what I mean?
When you make the chopping up motion and you hit your own desk.
Yeah.
So Blessings, I just
mean.
want to say this, man. I love what you said, and I think it's one of the most important things that our generations need to hear, because yeah, you might not be we didn't grow up in the 60s, you know, like this is really important for our older. We didn't grow up in that age. And so a lot of it, like you've talked about it, Vicky, of being a women's lib person, just fighting for that. And it's so easy for our generation my generation, like we were the gay rights movement moving forward to say that, hey, they're people too. And so my generation feels like, look at how far we made it. Whereas you backwards people back a long time ago still had civil rights issues and women's, and yeah, well, there was women's liberation movements, but probably most of those people weren't involved in that. But then realizing that we have those same movements, but just because you're not as far along as my generation, it's crazy that we would shut people down simply because they're not already where we are. I mean, it's how self-centered is that for us to think that? And so to have that grace of Jesus to say, oh, like, man, they're different than me, and learning who they are, what they've been through, because that's so cool. Like Vicky, about you, to hear that about you, it's like, man, there's a whole side of Vicky that I am not acquainted with, because it's not something that she's just walking around like, this is what I've always, it's something that I get to learn and experience through knowing you. And that's really exciting. And same thing, John and Sarah, it's like getting to know you guys more and more, and what you love, what you're about. And we may disagree on some things. I haven't experienced much of that with you guys at all, but like we may disagree on some stuff or have different political views or different ideas about, I'm sure amongst parents, there's different ideas of how to raise kids and all of that. But I love what you're talking about with grace, Blessings, that having that grace for the people around us, that's the only way we can have relationships. So yeah, sorry, that's another tangent, but another dialogue there by Jesse. But here's my last question. With us, we have social distancing and all that stuff, but as we get back to normal, hopefully it's soon, is there something tangible? We've already talked about it, but is there something tangible that you just want to do as we get back to normal? Yes, Blessings.
If anyone wants to go get food, I'm down for it.
Okay.
Down.
Perfect.
We can go for a walk in the park if we need to. Anything. Just tell me I'm there.
Are you vegetarian?
Literally. Anything. If you need your lawn mowed, but you'll be outside talking to me, I'm there.
Do you eat meat?
Yes. But I can go vegetarian if we need to.
No,
I'm just throwing that out there.
I also just want to point out that this is the cry of an extrovert in this society right now. This is a cry of a man who is desperately needing human contact. But also very real. What's that?
I'm telling anything.
Anyone else? Something that you tangibly want to do as we start getting back to hopefully start getting back to normal.
Yeah.
It's back to normal.
I want to dress up and go out to a fancy meal.
That sounds great.
Sounds like you're going to do that with John and Sarah.
Ah, there we go. And Jesse and Blessings, you guys can come babysit.
There we go. Nice. John and Sarah, anything that you tangibly, in everything we're talking about breaking those generational walls, anything that you guys tangibly want to do?
I'm not an extrovert. I just want to get out of the house. I'm an introvert through and through, but this is even getting to me. I need to get out of the house, and I need to break from the from the kids.
Well,
Little
let me ask you this, Sarah. You're an introvert. Many people are. And some people are shy extroverts, you know, so like they love being around people but aren't necessarily the most talkative. So what do you think is something that you can do to break the generational gap but still be true to you?
I'm sorry, Jesse, I couldn't hear you.
That's okay. Totally understandable. So you're an introvert. A lot of people, and there are many people who are shy extroverts. So either way, they're like, I like being around people, but I struggle to talk to them. But what's something that you can do as an introvert or even someone who's a shy extrovert to break down those generational walls, but still be true to you?
Well, I just have to be willing to get out of my comfort zone a little. But that doesn't mean that I need to have like 50 people that I've never met before come over at the same time.
Yeah.
It can be a little bit at a time. I'm more comfortable around people that I've, known for a while.
Yeah.
So just baby steps.
I totally agree. Like you can be true to yourself while also still breaking walls by, hey, if you are a hostess who loves, or a host who loves to have a ton of people over, do you, but if you're someone who's like, I like spending a couple of hours with people and then going away and staying, then do a couple of hours with somebody, out to eat or do some sort of activity and then go be you. It's like, but we can break out of it while still being us. Or if your blessings, literally hang out with people all day as much as possible. That's that's
You
that's
think it's a
blessing.
joke? I'm actually for real. I need to get
I
out
know
of
you are. So, but yeah, guys. Well, hey, thank you so much. I love the conversation and the desire in our hearts to break down those walls. Every single one of you guys, every single person here, I know has already been part of doing that. You guys have, I know Sarah and John, you guys have gone out of your way both directions, older and younger. Richard and Vicky, I know that you guys have both gone out of your way to not just talk with people, but to pray for people, to love on them. Both Chloe and I really appreciate your friendship and blessings. You're the kind of guy who you're always gonna, you just love everybody, man. And so I know that you guys already have, but this is a cool challenge for all of us still, and everyone who's listening, who's a part of our church, to step out of our comfort zone into, as you said, Vicky, learning to listen to people and learning to listen to people's, all of their stories, all of it. If anything, I feel like I'm taking out of this just that we all want to be listened to. And that is the thing that I think would really break down the walls. I don't know. Does anybody else want to add anything as we end?
Amen. I like that.
Anyone else want to add anything as we end? Or Richard, you look like you want to say.
No, you said it.
You said it all, Jesse.
Yeah. We appreciate, and this comes from a lot of us, and I'm speaking for the old folks in the church, and you guys can, jump on me later, but we've talked, and we really appreciate you, Jesse. And I'm not trying to give you a big head, but you seem to have a wisdom beyond your years. And no, we know it's not you. We know it's God. No, it's, praise God that you have allowed him to use you to be a blessing to our church.
And hopefully he'll use the rest of us to be a blessing to our church.
Yeah, may we follow your example.
Well, I have learned from all of you guys, and I appreciate saying that, but I've learned from all you guys, and it's been great to just get to know people in different phases of life and learn and grow. And I mean, man, it's so cool. So, and just things like, look at John and Sarah right now, where they have to juggle something that the rest of Richard and Vicky, you guys already experienced this, but both Blessings and I, we're not there yet. But just your phase of life, John and Sarah, I know it's crazy and hectic, but you guys are like such a valuable asset, not just to the church, but to the people around you who I know that you've loved on and cared about. Even you as an introvert, Sarah, you have gone outside of your comfort zone and cared for people in some really amazing ways. Blessings, bro, you just have so much heart for people. It's awesome. And Richard and Vicky, you guys are just I would trust you with anybody in our church, whether they were a new person, someone who's been there for years, young, old. middle age, I would trust you with anybody. So I'm just so appreciative of all you guys.
He's God.
Praise God.
Well, guys, this is the end of our Let's Talk series. I know that this will need to carry on past this, but like just these conversations. But I've really appreciated getting to know all of you a little bit more and hearing your perspectives. So, yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.